first, I didn't know.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm calling to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, January 31st. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and I am looking for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Have a second? Thank you. Roll call. Jill. Here. Stephen.
Here.
Jeremy.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
Chris.
Here.
Peter.
Here.
Denise here. Thank you. Okay. I am now going to open it up to, is there any public comment outside of the items on our agenda? I'm closing it for public comments, and now I'm going to ask for adoption of the meeting minutes from January 26th. Does anybody have any changes? I had one small change that I sent to Maria. So my small change was that under, oh no, it was for the Saturday, never mind.
Yes,
It wasn't
it
for the
was different.
26th, never mind. Okay, so may I have a moval, can I have a moval to approve?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill. Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Minutes are adopted. Okay, so first up on the agenda, and Curtis, you're in the hot seat, please.
Where is that? This one?
Right here in the middle. So Curtis, we had a lengthy discussion about your article several weeks ago. So at this point, I am going to ask my committee members if they have any further comments or questions for Curtis in respect of his article.
I guess if you move it to study it, does that mean that they're gonna follow within the parameters that you like, or they can just end up studying anything?
That's an interesting question. I was asked to speak to the non-resident taxpayers on Saturday. And what I pointed out to them is that the article, based on the advice of John Giorgio, is to establish a committee to study it. And from my perspective, that committee is free range, and they have to sort of say, do you like the idea of how many commissioners, the distribution or at large, and various steps in it. So I think it's sort of open. From my perspective, there's a start to my article, but the study committee is supposed to sort of look at it and say, where do you think we should go? That's the way I see it happening.
Other questions?
But that, Curtis, as I remember from our last meeting, was what town council said was that's sort of the way the process is supposed to go. You form a study committee.
Right.
And then presumably if the study committee is both selected and then of the right kind of people, and then get targeted towards who support the idea. You wouldn't want people on the committee.
Well, I
oppose,
think,
but maybe.
well, I mean, obviously, I assume the select board would appoint the committee and people would apply for that. And there may be some people who have varying points of view. I've had, Brooke Moore feels that it should all be at large. I've talked with Tucker Holland, because when I served on the town government study committee, this is sort of coming out of that a little bit, because I was the person who went to Barnstable and saw the town council working. But there are going to be questions. Should it be geographically, and Tucker is working on a matrix that would show how to divide the island so that areas are represented, Surfside represented, Sconset represented. Or is it going to be at large? And there are some people who think it should be at large. So I think the parameters will be what the committee itself adopts as the best way to go.
Okay,
I just want to get it going.
thanks.
Out of curiosity, are you going to be willing to serve on this committee? Curtis?
If I don't, they will find a present nag.
Even better. I like that we have the first volunteer. Excellent.
Ask the question.
Yes, of course. You
I
can.
don't think I was at that meeting, but I did watch it, but I may have forgotten. The current voting requirements as it relates to town meeting, 2/3 on zoning 2/3 on the overrides, those all transfer over just like that to a town council model, so you need 2/3 of the councilors, because to override 2.5.
I think that's a level of granularity that the study group would come up with. or
I
it would have
really
to be
don't
up
know the
legal,
answer to
right?
that, but,
Some of us know the answer.
Right.
Town councils exist, so the question is,
Right,
How
does
they
it have that
proceed.
same threshold, or is it just simple majority?
and one of the things that I felt that was important is not to go hiring outside consultants. Mass Municipal, is a free service. And ultimately, what I believe is going to come out of this is a charter. And Mass Municipal has the ability and the talent and helps do it. So I'm sure hoping we don't take 2 years to get this done. I think once you find what the proper parameters are for whether you do an override, you're still gonna have planning boards and zoning boards and things like that. But what you're going to do is have someone be able to come, and I said this to the non-resident taxpayers. You can come as a citizen and go to the town council and say, hey, I have an idea or I have a proposal, and they can accept that, refer it to committee or adopt it. And 2 weeks later, if it's a quickie, they can come back and approve it. You don't have to wait a year.
Mhm.
And we don't have to lose airport financing, or as a water commissioner, I don't have to lose a chance to get an affordable house that we could buy, but we have to go to town meeting and get the funds from our reserve release to do that. That's the frustration.
thank you, Curtis.
Well, most often when it comes to real estate, it's not getting money from reserves, it's authorization to borrow, and then you need to go to an election. So how does that work in this scenario?
Well, in the case of the water company, we have retained earnings, which we are allowed, that we could do for the housing. But we have to go to town meeting to get the authorization to use our retained earnings.
Right.
That's the only
that works for water.
example I'm using right now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure the other, you're gonna have to authorize borrowings, of course. when that comes.
And would you envision those, or maybe you don't have any vision for it, and that's fine too, but would those happen annually in your mind, or
What?
would there be more often elections than that? Ballots.
My objective with the town council is to move the process of government more quickly and get
Yeah.
things resolved. And there's 103 articles this year on the warrant, I believe,
105, Curtis.
105 now. Probably 6 of them need heavy discussion, like raising the lifeguards $1 an hour. I don't think we have to wait a year to do, but it's on the warrant. So I'm trying to streamline government, make it more efficient.
Right, well, I think there's merit in that, but if we're bound to annual ballots, and that's still a mechanism that we need to authorize borrowings, for instance, then I'm not sure we're getting at some of the bigger issues.
Well, that's a question that's gonna come up in this study area, and if it can't be resolved, then you're not gonna move to a town council.
Right.
So,
Well,
I mean,
I-
it's just.
I don't know if it's a question that needs to be left to study. I mean, there may be some direction that we get from town council or MMA or somebody else who says, no, that is the way it needs to be.
Can't wait for that. I am so excited to have that happen.
Can't wait. I like it. Good, good. I'm looking forward to the answer to it.
Libby, I know that there was a discussion at the select board several weeks ago about, at first they were thinking of just getting started on this, and then they decided that it would be more prudent or more appropriate to let the voters at town meeting decide if they wanted to move forward with the study. Do you want to add anything to this discussion right now?
Not really. No, that's pretty much what they said though.
Okay, with that, my memory's flawless, so.
You're good, Rob.
Other questions?
So where is the process right now?
So right
Yeah.
now, we are making a motion as to whether we think a study should be formed. And then the study will sort out all the details.
It's an
But
article.
then
on-
how is that different than what we're asking the voters in May to do?
They're going to, some of the voters in May, let's pretend that at the annual town meeting, everybody who goes just loves town meeting. It's the best thing that happens to them all
Awesome
year long.
entertainment.
It's, and so therefore they never even want to consider moving to a town council. So then they would vote against, if we made a motion to adopt, meaning recommending this article, then they would vote against it. Or if we made a motion not to adopt and they said, oh, all we can do is go to town council, then they would recommend it.
So
So-
what we are doing is we're making a recommendation on creating a study group that will go for a vote.
Correct.
And may I ask
That
a
it would
question?
vote at
Sure.
town meeting.
What is the difference, the practical difference of this than having sent it to the government study committee in the past? Will this committee that gets formed have some kind of additional powers or something or some?
No, but the government study committee is disbanded. So I don't know that I haven't read all the notes from the prior governments. Curtis, you were on it,
We're
right?
it. I don't want to speak for my fellow commissioners, but I think there's very strong sentiment for this.
I guess my question though is, why was it?
Positive or negative?
Exceedingly
But
positive.
what will the outcome of this committee be? That committee, why will this be more successful?
It's a different committee. This committee is to draw the parameters for changing the form of government to town council, and that will include creating a charter that implements that change.
So this committee has a different charge than the government study committee had.
Totally.
Okay.
And unfortunately, the government study committee submitted a number of recommendations that are still sitting at the legislature.
Well, that was kind of my question. I guess maybe a lot of us probably misunderstood what the government study committee was.
Well, we did make a number of recommendations. We did have hearings and, it's sort of frustrating that we bring them, they're approved at town meeting, they go up, to the legislature and they haven't been acted on for a year. Like a simple one was to change the term of the moderator from 1 to 5 years. Why re-elect the moderator every year? That's a very simple thing. Sarah's been there for 27 years. I was the only other candidate the year Sarah won. I went and kissed her hand. I said, thank God you won. But that was the kind of thing that was sort of basic, and they haven't even acted on that, which is very frustrating.
Why is this gonna be different? I mean, once the committee makes a decision and puts a recommendation in, can't the same thing happen and it gets tied up in the legislature?
What Mr. Giorgio told me is that the legislature, if they approve it, would probably send it back to the town for a ratifying vote anyway. It would go to the voters for ratification.
So how long a period are we talking about before anything could be enacted from this town meeting? At least a year, correct?
Probably a year. In an ideal world, I'd love to, if this is approved and pass at town meeting, I'd love to get the committee going, and I'd even aim for being on the special town meeting this fall, but I'm not crazy. I mean, I'm hopeful, but we are.
Just clarify for me if you could.
Sure.
What we're being asked to do today on this concept is to recommend up or down, yes or no, that at town meeting, we will support the idea of creating a new study group.
Of taking a vote.
So that's
to
all we're
establish
trying to do today,
is getting it on the ballot, yeah, or getting
or getting our recommendation
on the agenda.
along with the warrant on the ballot.
Correct.
Okay.
That's as I see it.
Okay, good. All right, any further discussion from the finance committee members? Anybody else in the room want to add to that? We'll wait till it's your turn in the barrel. Okay.
There's somebody, raising- Rick Atherton. Yes, hand raised.
Okay, Rick?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Rick.
Just a general comment. I think the language of your motion is important. And I heard Curtis say it might be to study converting to a town council form of government. I would think the charge to the committee, if that's sort of what you're going to come up with, it should be broader than that. You're to review various forms of town government, including the current one, and trying to sort them out and see if the committee can come to a recommendation. But I don't think you should prejudge whether the town council is the only possible form of different
That's the article,
methods. Just to
Yeah.
I think,
like,
That's outside the scope, Rick.
yeah, Rick, the article we have in front of us is to study town council form of government.
That's the
It's
article.
not to institute another
But
town
you
government.
also have another article.
Good job on, but
which is
that's.
much more definitive. So I'm just suggesting that is an option, but if you choose to make it just focused in that one way, I think it's just not as free-flowing and open to differing thoughts than if it was just for town council. So there you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
I think, Curtis, if I could speak for you, that's a feature, not a bug. You want us to study exactly.
That's the article.
Town council.
because in the Town Government Study Committee, we also went to Falmouth where they have a representative town meeting and met with them and looked at options there and out of I wrote the article, and my article based on the 4 forms of government, there are options in Massachusetts. The town council for me is the most appropriate. And as I say, I was the person who met with the Barnstable people. The committee went to Falmouth and several of us met with them. We can't do a mayor because we're not big enough. And then the option is open town meeting. So it's open, representative, town council, or mayor council. Those are the 4 options in Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? In which case, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
And a
Second.
second? Thank you. Thank you. Roll call, Peter,
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Thank you. Jill?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. Okay, so now we can, is there an appetite for a motion today, a recommendation?
I think today there is for me, but I'd like to hear from the other gentlemen here in attendance and see if it might change what we want to do about one versus the other.
And you want to know if Jill, Joanna and I also are open to it?
Talking about the gentlemen,
Right, Jeff.
spectators, not the other commissioners, the spectators who have similar art. Almost caught me there, but no, I'm not suggesting that the male commissioners have anything more important to say.
Ooh,
I'd like to add that I've spoken to a lot of people about this since the article was written, and it's been unanimous in favor of a change to a council situation. I haven't not one person I met wanted to stay the way we are.
So here's the complexity of concatenating them. Is that this is the article in front of us and we have to make a motion on this article. The next article, as we know, is unimplementable because of the legal issues around it. However, we're very interested to hear about what they have to say and how it will work and, what their thinking is. But even if we were to do a positive motion for the next one, it can't be implemented according to town council because of the deficiencies to it. So what my question is to the group is, do we have to hear from both before we can make an article on the first recommendation on the first one? And if you all say yes, then fine. Curtis, we'll have you go back and sit in timeout and we'll have the next guys come over.
Well, I'm gonna stay anyway.
Okay, you're gonna stay anyway. Okay, well, Curtis is here for the duration. Then we might as well hear from Jeff and I don't know your name.
Oh,
Bo, thank you, Bo. Okay. All right, then we'll
Okay.
defer our,
Am I off the hot seat?
you're off the hot seat.
We're gonna tag in and out here, Curtis, really quickly.
Well, here.
You can we can move over. Here,
Cheers. I'll slide.
we'll make room.
Here. Say hello.
Okay, good. So Jeff and Bo, over to you.
Yes.
So what we would do today is just get, up to 10 minutes, you're thinking on this, and then we'll open it to questions because the questions tend to provoke a fairly robust discussion. And then I'll ask if there's anybody that wants to speak to it that's online, and then I'll close it for public discussion and we'll have deliberations. So that's the process.
Perfect. That sounds great.
Good. Thank you. Thank
Well,
you for being here.
No problem. Thanks for having us and thanks for, I know this was up earlier. I think I've met everyone here, but for those I haven't, I'm Jeff Carlson. Speaking for myself as a private citizen today. I know we've crossed paths for other issues before, but this is just me and what I like to do in my spare time. So we're here because I think we dovetail really nicely with what you and Curtis were just talking about. I think we're also very interested in trying to create a more efficient form of government that really meets the needs of the citizens in a more constructive way. And tries to create something where we're incentivizing our officials to get up to speed and do things and really move forward in our government. And I think one of our big concerns that we got to is right now in our current form of government, we're asking essentially 5 volunteers, and it's kind of interesting to say that in front of another group of volunteers, which puts a lot of time and effort in to really make substantive decisions for the town and put a lot of time and effort towards what they're being asked to do is to try to find a way to give them the time and resources to do what they need to do and try to make a government that's better and more efficient. I know you just talked about a lot with Curtis, but I think what moved us to the next kind of what we view as the next stage from what Mr. Barnes' article is just what you were talking about, is we've seen government study committees. It's been talked a lot about, you know, in private conversations and things, is how do we take that next step and not just create a study that goes onto a shelf and says, hey, there were some really great ideas and now it's stuck and it's stagnated. And how do we bring the conversation and really get better information to the people who are the voters and people that need to make the decision of what, you know, that form of government may look like, what are some of the nuances to it. And I think we understand that there's a lot of details and issues that need to be worked out. And I think that's where having that time and some of the appeal of Mr. Barnes's article is, because I think in my mind, the first step is to say, this is a form of government that we think is worth putting the time and effort to figure out those details. Because I think a lot of times what happens, we lose the concept in the details of what's happening and what's running. And we get hung up on well, should it be 9 people? Should it be 11? Should it be 7? Should it be 5? Should it be at large? Should it be districts? How should it work? And we get frustrated at that and we don't make progress and we don't commit to decisions. So I think our endeavor was to kind of pull that up and say, this is what we think it might look like. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out what's best for Nantucket and have substantive conversations with some background with it and decide if that's the direction we want to go or not. That's, I guess that's a little bit of my soapboxy speech for it, but, I don't know if Bo has anything he wants to add or.
So the conversation you guys are having for, specifics really were just charter questions. And the charter commission, according to John Giorgio, would sort of hammer out those decisions. Those are details that we left out, thinking we don't know everything, but that a commission would need to basically hammer out those little details. So,
but let's start making progress towards figuring out what those are and have that conversation. I know we submitted a really lengthy article, so I don't want to go through it all for everyone to pieces either. But that's kind of what brought us to where we are today. And we understand there's some legal deficiencies too from town council's review and understand that that's there. But I think from our end, the most important part was to be at the table today and to get this to people and start having that conversation to get it to people so they can make an educated decision at the end of the day about what they think is the best direction for a place that's a lot more complicated than what it used to be even 3 years ago or 5 years ago, and what that vision is going to be for us to move forward and the most efficient way to do it.
Just before you do, Jeremy, I mean, because I always lose my thoughts the minute they go out of my head. So what I've heard you just say was, or what I interpret is, if Curtis's article said something like to authorize a study, that will end up in a warrant article to put in front of the town voters versus just sit on a shelf, as you've just talked about. You know, and a study on the shelf doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah.
And your impetus is really, we want to do something and at least get to where it's something concrete that we can vote on as a community.
Absolutely. I think you hit the man on the head.
Okay, Jeremy?
Town council has said there are legal deficiencies in yours. in your situation. Have you worked with them to try and fix that so that there's something that is deficient? It's hard for any committee anywhere to approve it. And so I wonder where you stand on dealing with the issues that have been pointed out to you that would need to be fixed in order to get momentum.
Sure, so I think from our end, the deficiencies that are in place really involve the fact that the way it was filed isn't a typical charter amendment that you can put through town meeting, right? So through town meeting and charter amendments, you can make small subtle changes to the charter. At least this is my understanding from Mr. George's explanation and some conversation around it. You can make small subtle changes to the charter through an amendment process that goes through town meeting. In this case, where you'd be looking to essentially replace the charter, there's certain procedures that are outlined in state law that either include kind of a two-pronged way to approach it, where you can either go and collect signatures of 15% of the registered voters. So for Nantucket, it's right around 1,500 people that have to sign the petition to then create a charter commission whose purpose is to draft a new charter for adoption, and there's some nuance to that. The second choice is to go through that special legislation path that we were just talking through before. Those are really the only two ways to take what we've done and make those conform and meet those legal requirements. So either way, through what's happening here, even if we amended the language today, we simply won't be able to meet that standard
Yeah.
through state law.
Yeah.
Again, understanding that now and understanding the charter process, I think we're all, kind of finding our way through something that we haven't really done in a very long time, a little bit, and understanding that better. Obviously, there's a lot of public discussion that comes in something that's really the most significant change to how we do the government business since we incorporated in 1672 to make this change, to get it in front of people and have people understand what those changes may entail and how that's going to affect how people interact with the government. It's not as simple as going to the Board of Selectmen or town meeting. That interaction is going to change, hopefully for the better, with more accessibility. But I think it's also something where getting input from as many people as possible is going to be super important for people to understand. And that's hopefully what we're getting towards and we're moving towards. But I think there's definitely a bit of a longer road to go before we get to the end.
Thank you, Jeff. Other questions for Jeff or let me go to the FinCom first, Curtis. Thank you. So FinCom members, Stephen?
Yeah, so with the realization that this is a longer process, we need to come back to a future town meeting. Or go through special legislation, which sounds potentially like an even longer road. Are you, Bo, Roberto, all of your sponsors, are you all supportive of Curtis's effort as a way to get to have this discussion so we can come back to a special or a future town meeting and have something that could be approved and acted upon?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think anything that furthers the conversation and gets people more information is definitely something that I'm really interested in.
So I see that as, this isn't my issue, this isn't my article, but if you do combine efforts, and you make it more clear to town meeting voters, these were two efforts approaching a similar or the same goal. If you supported this one, you should throw your weight behind this one. That might be beneficial to both of your efforts, your campaigns. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely, wholeheartedly agree. This is a project that requires the entire town. It's not a simple solution. So we need to all work together, and we wholeheartedly agree with Curtis.
So I'm still,
Yeah, when you're ready.
hang on, Curtis, I haven't forgotten you. I know you're in timeout, but I can still remember. Okay.
I'm in the cold seat.
Joanna or Peter? Any questions?
I do. I think it's going to be very confusing to the voters to see both of these things on the, I know it makes too late now to see both the articles on the warrant. And so I don't know how you get across to the voters that basically you're looking to do the same thing. So I don't know whether you join forces and ask people not to vote for one of them, or do something, but I think right now what you've created is a problem that I think you need to think about and figure out a way to address.
Peter, I think we'd have to get town council to weigh in, but I think, let's pretend for a moment we say motion to adopt on Curtis's article. And then we say take no action on the second one. And even if people adopted both of them at town meeting, the only one that actually could get actioned would be Curtis's. So while.
That's true, yeah, so it wouldn't matter.
I
Joe,
also think we could, these could be two articles where we could put a comment on them where I think we could hopefully steer the voter towards the one that's actionable and complement the one that's
Unactionable. It's totally.
I don't think that's good English, but and sort of try to guide the voter group, if you will.
okay, thank you. Peter, any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for FinCom? Because Curtis has had his hand up for quite a while. Oh,
Joanna.
I'm sorry. Joanna?
It's okay. Question, I really just have a question similar along the lines of Peter, and what everybody's been saying. I mean, I'm essentially supportive of these ideas, but the question that I am concerned that people will become confused. And what about the idea of, and I don't know if we haven't discussed this, Jeff, right? But what if you removed the article, right? Because it can't be enacted.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly an option that we've been talking about. I mean, I guess some of it for us in waiting was also to obviously have conversations like this and kind of see
Right.
the direction that it was going. But I think there's definitely some opportunity between now and, town meeting to make that final decision, or even at town meeting, to go and also get some answers to some of our questions about, are there possible ways to change it to make it a little bit better or put it together? But I do think the last thing we want to do is to create a situation where people are confused by the choice of essentially the same thing twice.
Right, because I'm concerned they're gonna see it as an either or, right?
And some of that also may come out at actually talking at town meeting about how that's not the case. I mean, obviously, there's a process that's in place and very set rules for how town meeting functions, but I think at the end of the day, with this one not being able to have action directly taken on it, I mean, I think that makes it pretty clear that, I mean, I think we're very supportive of Mr. Barnes' article, that barring some sort of major substantive change, which may not be possible still, I would anticipate our comments at town meeting, and hopefully, FinComs would be to not take action on this one. But again, I think also the discussion goes with it or goes around it is still important to be had.
My understanding that to withdraw an article, you need the same people to sign the withdrawal as signed the original. So I'm hoping you had 11 people and not 300.
We definitely didn't have 300, that's good. But we definitely also exceeded the minimum
Yeah.
amount just for the purpose of lots of different reasons why you get extra signatures.
But we have many meetings between now and actually closing the warrant. So this could come up because we have thousands of people who attend FinCom, as you can imagine. And they'll all know about it.
I'm amazed that the rooms. numbers.
Standing room only, I know, it's amazing. So, okay. Thank you. Other questions? Otherwise, Jeremy, you had a question.
I was just wondering what it would take for you to go back to your constituents and withdraw this so that you could support Curtis's idea. What does he have to do? There will be no confusion.
No, I think that's understood. I mean, obviously, there's a procedure to withdraw articles. That we definitely are looking into. But we're also still exploring what options may be available for the article that they're on the table. I mean, I know we don't want to cause confusion, But I also like to think people can sort out the idea that.
Yeah, I think the voter's pretty smart.
What if we,
No,
what if we clarify Curtis's by saying that the end goal of the study is to get to or recommend a charter commission? Is that,
Or maybe that's special legislation
yeah,
that's required.
one of the two. Curtis, I'll let you, you've been patient. I'll let you have something to
Well,
say.
I'm on the same team.
Right,
My ultimate objective of this study group is that they would present as part of their report, a charter that could then be voted. So maybe we're gonna integrate that anyway, but I'm sort of hoping that the study group is gonna go through and say, we like this, and with Mass Municipal's help, they will give us a draft charter that we can come back and present as part of the report. So I think both and is really where I see it coming, by following the charter as a part of the final report.
I mean,
Joe.
it strikes me that Jeff and Roberta on this group, you actually, your article incorporated a chart that you lifted from some other town,
we
right? I mean,
totally lifted it.
We.
All I'm saying is, that's not critical, I'm not being critical, of it, but it seems to me as part of this whole steering committee process is, you guys can come to the table with a, you know, you're actually right, I'm sure the Mass Municipal Association has charters, but this is this work that you guys have done is also helpful to this process.
So for the record, the information that keeps going out there is that the charter we lifted was Framingham. That is incorrect.
No.
We based it off of Franklin.
oh Franklin, it was an effort.
Franklin is the most recent one.
Everybody.
And he is actually the person who, the advisor on Mass Municipal Association, spoke at the select board meeting just 2 weeks ago.
So the resource and the homework has been done, which is terrific.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So here's what, according to John Giorgio, the outcome would have to be, you elect a charter commission pursuant to blah, blah, blah. I'm not gonna read it out loud, to write the new charter. And then that's approved at a ballot question at the annual election. That's path A. Path B is town meeting votes on a petition, would have to vote to petition the legislature through a home rule petition to adopt a special act establishing a new form of government. So that's path B. So the idea would be that this study group ends up with a proactive path on A or B to see if and A seems easier to me, but that's, you know, what do I know? Because it would be just nice to have it on the ballot and be done with it, rather than waiting for the legislature to come up with home rule, an answer to a home rule petition. So that's the two paths to be able to move to town council government, according to what John gave us. Now, if we want to wait until we can have Jordan, oh my gosh. First day with the new teeth. If we want to wait until John Giorgio is at Monday's public hearing, and then he can help us with the comment we'd want to make on the motion to ensure it gets to something concrete versus just a study. We, a motion to adopt provided blah, blah, blah. Then I'm offering that could be an option for postponing a motion until Monday on these two articles. And I think that to Jeff's point, I think whilst it would be handy to only have one in the town meeting discussion, I do believe that town meeting voters are going to be able to discern this is the one to vote for and this is the one to motion not to adopt, or motion to whatever, not to adopt the other one. Take no action. I do think the voters would be able to discern the difference between the two, especially when Jeff and Curtis stand up hand in hand and discuss it.
We're not gonna
Okay.
hug though.
No hugging in FinCom. There's no hugging in FinCom.
Not in public meetings.
I for one, I'm happy to vote on both these articles tonight. So.
Okay, I'm just offering a third option. Flexibility,
Yeah, I mean, we can discuss at a later date, as we do sometimes, what the language of the
the comment
comment
is,
that Joe
okay.
will write. will
that
be.
Joe will write.
Yeah.
What the language of Joe's comment should be, yes, exactly. Okay, in which case I need to close the public discussion. Motion to close the public comment section of the second article we're discussing.
So moved.
So moved.
Thank you. Jill. Yes, no, yep, Stephen.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joanna,
Hi.
Peter.
Aye.
Okay, public comments closed, and now we can move to deliberation or straight to a motion.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, I'll stay for the good part.
Oh, we definitely are. Still gonna be caught up at the, in the firestorm.
That's, so my motion would be to take no action.
On this particular article.
Sorry.
Okay, so just to confirm, what we're motioning on Article 82, home rule petition, charter change to town council, town manager form of government. There's a motion to take no action. Is there a second? Or not take no action?
Yes.
I
Oh,
second.
take no action.
This is not Curtis' article.
This is the second one.
Yeah. I second that motion.
Second, take no action. And now is there any discussion about take no action?
Not particularly, just that we'll make a comment at a later date.
Okay, thank you. All right, are we ready for roll call vote? Jill. Thank you, Stephen.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Denise. Aye. Joanna.
Hi.
Peter.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, take no action with the comments to come later from Joe, our master comment writer. Okay, now let's go back to Curtis's article, Article 81, Town Council Form of Government, and to see if the town will vote to direct the select board to establish a committee for the purpose of studying the establishment of a town council form of government for the town and county of Nantucket. Is there a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
So it's
Positive
Positive,
motion.
Motion to
I'm sorry,
adopt.
okay, I'm sorry, I moved it,
what I just said.
you just said, positive, I phrase, it's, motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any deliberations or discussions on the motion?
Well, I think, again, we'll come back to a comment later, but I think there might need to be some specificity in our comment that we want this to result in some definitive action, not just, and then we discussed that before, we can revisit the minutes and talk about that later, but not that it result in a study that sits on a shelf.
Okay,
Sort of no later than town meeting.
No later than
2024?
annual town meeting 2024, that would be good.
okay.
And do we want to? Well, I suppose just one final output is what you want, as opposed to interim milestones.
Correct, we'd like a, an actionable warrant to be, actionable
Warrant article.
warrant article that includes a charter that can be voted. I think was,
Here's just a question, intermittent milestones for commentary. Is that a good thing? Does that lend?
Well, that
itself-
will be part of the process, Jeremy. So when the study group goes together, there's going to have to be public hearings, postings, open meetings, all of that. All of that good stuff will happen when Curtis gets that organized and running. So, like how I did that?
I mean, I still have a question about the first question you asked. I guess I'm a little bit confused by the article still in terms of the details written about what the charter would include down below is does the action that you're describing have to include the details points 1 through 6 here to be successful?
as I'm looking at them, item 6 about how much they should be paid, I don't care much about, but that it is about, that the warrant would be inclusive of an article that includes a town council, that is important to me. I think that's exactly what the article gets to. I don't want to see a wide open study of all potential government options.
What about that? I understand and agree with. What about point 3, for instance?
So,
I don't care if a specific neighborhood is Pulpus, Quidnet, Wawinnet. I don't care that it is or that it isn't. But you're right, maybe our.
I mean, that's the
comment
purpose of
should
the
be-
study group. I guess I'm confused by why those were included. If it's a study to determine which of those is correct.
Right, I think,
so what would have helped at the end of that sentence to see if the town will vote to direct the select board to establish a committee for the purpose of studying the establishment of a town council form of government for the town and county of Nantucket. Items such as the following could be considered. And just if it had, if we had that, it doesn't say that now, Curtis.
It just lists them as.
It
part
just
of it.
lists them.
But he said when I asked him, what's to say they have to
Well,
just talk about this? He
it
said
does
they
say-
don't, they can't talk about
I
anything.
know, but I want to make sure our motion is correct as it relates to this.
it does say or to take any other action as appropriate.
Yeah.
And you saved the life here.
Well, there's also the opportunity, I mean, we can make language tweaks on the town meeting floor, right? So if we're really concerned that, and I'm not looking at the text, but that the text is sort of doesn't quite get us where we want to go. I mean, it sounds like, Denise, the phrase that you used, if you add that to that first paragraph, it kind of lines things up.
Yeah, I just want to get that in the motion to be clear that these things haven't been determined
Right.
as part of the action we're asking to be.
Well, then, all right, then,
Yeah, maybe our motion would just include number one, and I realize not everybody has it in front of them, but just that the town council shall serve as the legislative body for the town and county of Nantucket. And then skip right to, or to take any other action as appropriate. So we don't get into all
Yeah,
the
no, that's
specifics about
just-
what they're paid or what the districts look like or any of those other.
Yeah, I just think we need to do some clarification on our motion.
Yeah.
So that will be in our comment or in our motion.
I think the motion,
Okay, motion to adopt with a strict editing of the current motion, of the current article.
right.
So,
to include
motion
all
to
the-
adopt, provided it only includes bullet one.
Right. And maybe.
now I'm wondering whether we might be smarter to use your suggestion of earlier of waiting till Monday for this particular article, so we have John Giorgio
To tell us if we
on
can
hand to
actually
tell us
cross
what's the
out.
best way to edit this article to get it lined up. the way
Can we
we'd
cross
like.
out two
Right,
of the six?
I'll also, through you, I'll suggest some text that everybody can have in front of them before we all vote, so we know exactly what it is that we're talking about.
Okay, perfect. And then I will forward it to the rest of FinCom.
Yeah.
For Monday. And to Libby and John, Libby can share it with John. Okay, Libby? Yes, Denise, that's perfect. Thank you, Libby.
Okay, got it.
It's amazing how
All
much
right.
I can do.
I think that makes some sense.
Okay, so we will hold off on the motion until Monday on this, because we want to
Table
make
the
sure
motion,
that,
or whatever we do from Robert's Rules of Order, sure.
yeah, we just postpone it. Okay, all right then. Thank you, Curtis. Oh, John.
Right, right. Thank you all.
You're not late, Roberto. You were fine. Thank you. Okay, let me just write down tables until Monday. Thank you, everyone. All right, Hillary. You are up.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Jody?
So I see you have a presentation. Maria, is it possible to share it on the screen as well, or? I don't have it open on. Okay, well, everybody has it. We can just work off the hard copies.
Chairman.
How do you like?
Do you have a couple?
I looked at it online today. So. Okay,
Well, thank you, everyone. I have prepared a presentation, which I hope fits into 10 minutes to run through something that people don't talk all that much about, which is our regional planning agency. So I'll go through that and answer questions. So thank you for welcoming me to present this proposed legislation to you regarding regional planning for Nantucket. The article was first proposed last year. It was referred for further study in a 188 to 172 vote. And I think the close vote shows that there is a lot of interest in this article. The article that I'm bringing back to town meeting this year is similar in intention, but as I'm sure you've seen, has material differences from the 2022 article. I won't be presenting on the Commonwealth's regional planning law. That's in the packet. I hope you all had a chance to read it. Except to say that the important thing to know is that the regional planning law is designed to bring state and federal funding, technical expertise, and coordinated long-range planning to regions by designating regional planning agencies or RPAs. And as you saw on page 17 of the presentation, most regions have multiple towns, but Nantucket was recognized in 1973 when the state allowed us to have our own dedicated RPA comprised of 3 islands with multiple villages and their surrounding waters. So I just want to clarify that I'm going to be using the terms regional planning agency, our regional planning agency, our RPA, the Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, the NPNEDC, and Planning Commission all interchangeably, and they're all the same thing. Okay, so turning to slide 3, what is the objective of Article 83? The objective is to support and facilitate long-range planning and achieve strategic investment for Nantucket. And we will achieve this by differentiating Nantucket's long-range regional planning agency from our short-term land use function, by increasing interdepartmental collaboration, and by maximizing federal and state grant writing and administration within the RPA, benefiting the town and county of Nantucket. And I'll explain to you how I believe this article will push us in that direction. So what the article does precisely on slide 4, it clarifies the name and mission. I think this is self-explanatory. You can read this. I'm not going to read it. It just modernizes the name and the mission of the RPA consistent with the regional planning law, which is chapter 40B of Massachusetts general law. I just want to be specific that this article does not add any regulatory authority to the commission. It doesn't expand the powers of the commission in any way. I think there was a little bit of confusion about that. Someone got up at town meeting last year and said, you know, everyone's going to be sued if you pass this article. It doesn't change any of that. It changes the composition, the name, and, you know, adds some additional words to what planning commissions do in terms of what they look out for and what they plan for. Okay, so what the article does in terms of its composition. Today, the NPNEDC and the planning board overlap completely. The 3 at-large members are appointed by the NPNEDC. Article 83 proposes a new structure, which I believe is beneficial because, as I will show, Nantucket has grown to the point where short-term land use tasks and long-range planning tasks can no longer effectively be combined. A new, dedicated, distinct regional planning agency will allow Nantucket to flex our muscle and achieve our long-range priorities. And if you turn to slide 6, I will explain what I mean. Over time, Nantucket has consolidated its land use planning, permitting, and inspection functions into one department called Planning and Land Use, or PLUS. This has resulted in better customer service and operating efficiency. We like PLUS. The PLUS staff are responsible for also supporting the NPNEDC. But what has effectively happened, which I think is inevitable, is that short-term tasks, which can't wait, which are all those tasks on the right side of the slide, HDC applications, you heard about those last week, 2,300 last year, subdivision review, special permits, variances, inspections, they take up a tremendous amount of staff time and attention. This leaves very little time left over for making progress on the long-range goals. On the left side, community vision and goals, harbor health, island-wide traffic and transit, climate resiliency, and I would also say I should have put housing here, although that has its own department that would be included under community vision and goals. Moving on to slide 7, the org chart, it clearly shows that the NPNEDC is kind of in this realm, which is all land use planning and short-term permitting and review, and also includes hard to get to, very complex long-range tasks, which we absolutely have to solve if we're going to be successful as a community over the long term. I also want to mention that Nantucket's regional planning agency is the only RPA in the Commonwealth with an organization chart that implies it is responsible for day-to-day operations of permitting and review for a town, the only one. And I also want to say, and this is very important because I can imagine where all your minds are going, it is impossible to talk about our RPA without also talking about PLUS. Article 83 does not make any comment about PLUS as a management structure. The creation of PLUS and the appointment of the director of PLUS and any employees within PLUS is the sole decision of the town manager, and it will remain the case. And I think the fact that this has become blurred and people have questions about it is part of what I'm trying to address with this new structure, because they are really different things. What Article 83 does is create a new governance structure with a core of 5 people elected specifically for regional planning and 6 equally represented boards, which together comprise the executive, that would be the county commissioners, land use, which would be the planning board, conservation, which would be the conservation commission, those are all already on it, housing, the housing authority, open space and recreation, which is the new addition of the land bank, and preservation, which is the new addition of the historical commission. These groups oversee all of these important functions for the town and county of Nantucket. And there is a letter from the historical commission emphasizing that they would like to participate. And I have spoken with the director of the land bank, who has also told me that I can say they also would like to participate. They also feel they have a right, they have something to add to the planning commission and like the idea of participating. Okay, slide 8. I mentioned earlier that having our own RPA is a powerful tool. And the reason is that it brings technical expertise and funding to our island region. So let's talk a little bit more about that. If you turn to slide 9, it's important to understand that our RPA is a source of funds. There are other RPAs in the state that support their regions with very little local municipal funding. I hope you had a chance to look at the information in the packet on the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission that I included. This commission oversees 15 towns. They draw only 6% of their budget from member cities and towns. So state and federal grants are substantial, especially now. The Finance Committee should take this very seriously. This is a list on slide 9 of state grants awarded only in 2022. It's over 186 million, and this is not all grants. And this doesn't even include the state transportation improvement plan grants. This is money for stormwater planning and management, cleaning up pollution, protecting groundwater, housing planning and development, small bridge repair, shared streets, trails, playgrounds, parks, and playing fields. Nantucket does have a lot of grants. I'm not saying we don't get grants. We do a good job of getting grants. The sewer department, the harbor master, the CRAC, the historical commission, the housing office, and more have all advanced their work through grants. Patrick Reed, who was with us only for 9 months, but he advanced transportation work through grants. But imagine what Nantucket could accomplish with an RPA that only worked on bringing technical assistance and funding to Nantucket to support our long-range initiatives. What more could we achieve for Nantucket? What savings could we achieve for our taxpayers? And I will be happy to answer more questions about grants in the Q&A. And I also brought a list of what specifically some of these are for. I don't know if that's of interest to you. So moving on to federal grants, this is really extraordinary. The federal government is pumping an unprecedented amount of money into our economy. I don't really know how this can be called an Inflation Reduction Act, but yet that is what they are calling it. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the Build Back Better, over $500 billion for bridges, roads, ferries, electric port equipment, electric transit, broadband access, climate change adaptation, carbon reduction, clean water, pollution remediation. The Inflation Reduction Act, $440 billion to transition to clean energy, prepare for extreme weather, reduce pollution, upgrade infrastructure. And then we also have our state transportation improvement plan, which because Nantucket is considered, we are a transportation planning organization. And so we function as a metropolitan planning organization for transportation. We can stick our straw into this milkshake. Not everybody can. And it's $14.9 billion over the next 5 years. So this is serious money. We could use it to achieve our goals. I know on Saturday you looked through a pretty daunting capital plan that included all sorts of things that overlap with what the federal government is wanting to help with. So we can't afford to miss out. We should not miss out. We're especially well positioned to be awarded grants because of our RPA, our MPO, and other certifications such as Housing Choice, We should be combing through our capital plan, matching needs with available grants. And we cannot do this without a focus in activated RPA because it is actually a lot of work to get grants. We have to activate our RPA, and Article 83 is that activation. I have some key questions. I think they're the right questions. I'm not going to read them, but it's really about working together, including with public participation. And I want to close with a letter that I came across when I was doing my research, which has been ongoing for 3 years on this project, which is from what I think was a very visionary and transformative time in planning for the long-term health of Nantucket. And this is from 1982. It's a letter from the NP and EDC that was published in the paper. I'll send it to you if you want to read the whole 3-page letter. But what it says is we are all here together, whether we like it or not, and have inherited the stewardship of this bit of land, for better or for worse. We are all in some way the causes of the problem, whether we be shop owners, real estate agents, contractors, school teachers, planners, retirees, whatever. We have met the enemy and he is us. Unless Nantucket as a community puts aside the politics of the last 2 decades and begins to reach a consensus about the direction in which the community should be headed and the specific action that is required to do it, it may foreclose the opportunity to control its own destiny. It will be run over by blind economic inertia that we have seen only the beginning of. And they closed this letter with a statement that was, we need all the help we can get. And then they started a 2-year community comprehensive planning process. They had an expert from MIT leading them through it. And they came up with the idea of the land bank. And they passed it in a nearly unanimous vote at town meeting. It was a very controversial idea. So I think it should not be underestimated how remarkable it was that it passed after a 2-year planning exercise. And then they muscled it through the State House in a year. And imagine what Nantucket would look like without the land bank. So planning is important. Planning is real. And I understand it will be difficult for you all to support this article for reasons you all know. I've watched all the discussions about this article, and nonetheless, I am sincerely asking you to support Article 83. The reason is that we all have to look out for Nantucket. We have to be constantly asking, what can we do better? What opportunities are we being given? And sometimes the best ideas and the best answers come from outside the box or outside the boat. In this case, I hope I've demonstrated to you that we have overburdened our RPA with short-term tasks. And this proposed structure merits a positive motion so that we can get back to visionary achievement and maximize the potential of our RPA. It's nobody's fault. We have too much to do. We need to disentangle these 2 functions. And I think Article 83 is a step in the right direction. I hope you will ask your questions and that we can have a discussion about it.
Thank you, Hillary. Questions? Jeremy?
So it seems as if what you want to do is expand the grant writing or getting federal funds to the maximum. It's a good thing. And you want to have additive long-term strategic planning. Those are the 2 things you want to accomplish that I think I just heard. And you want to do it in the construct of adding it to plus.
No. So Article 83 will not guarantee that any of those things will happen. In the same way that changing our form of government to a town council will not guarantee a better, more efficient government. Article 83 creates a different governance structure, catalyzes a conversation about long-range planning, broadens the tent and gives a broader group of boards and commissions all an equal say. And I think it is positive change for our government, and it's more likely to result in a regional planning agency that will act and achieve what other regional planning agencies
You
achieve.
just said agency. That sounds regulatory.
So I agree, and I used to call it authority, but the fact is I didn't name it. It's named by Massachusetts 40B, which is a general law. It's
You're
like-
changing the name anyway with regional, which I think they're already doing, but I think you're, right? You're changing the name anyway, right?
I'm
Are you gonna keep
proposing,
it in PEDC or?
I'm proposing to change the name to the Nantucket Planning Commission. And it is by definition a regional planning agency, and that is by state law. I mean, there's a Massachusetts Association of Regional Planning Agencies, Marpa. And that's just the thing is.
Yeah, it makes sense off island because they're dealing with a lot of other towns for their NPEDCs. We're just one, so I don't really care about that word, but you're saying agency. Agency at a federal level implies regulatory, so that's why. I just. hear you
Not all
keep saying that.
agencies have regulations, and this has no regulation, it's advisory. So if you look at page, if you look at the page about the regional planning law in Massachusetts, which is on page 16.
Yep.
It says, such plans and recommendations shall be advisory only. This is what if we want to have a regional planning agency, this is what we have to follow. And it is such a gift that we can plan regionally with only one town, because that's why we don't need any regulation.
Joe, you had a question?
Yeah, I guess the picture I'm getting, Hillary, is you've looked at the NP and EDC.
The Alphabet Commission, as I
know.
love and they call it.
And basically, the presentation says, okay, the NP and EDC has become bogged down in sort of short-term regulatory and, administrative sort of functions, and doesn't spend enough time thinking about longer-term strategic issues facing the island, all of which are very important. I don't disagree. But really, the only change is you're saying, well, we're going to change the composition and how the composition of the governing body, the board of the RPA. And I'm saying, well, but it still stays under plus, and,
It's not under plus.
No, she's taking away from.
I'm not doing anything. The NP and EDC today is not under plus. What it is that the NP and EDC is a state entity, and it employs a planning director. And the planning director has been appointed by our town manager with agreement of the NP and EDC to be responsible for everything in plus.
right.
So we have, because of need and because of momentum, put our regional planning function in charge. We have entangled it. It's not in charge of plus. Plus is under the town manager. All of these boards, despite that org chart, all of the boards are town boards. And by the nature of our charter, they are responsible for town functions. They're town boards, and the town manager is in charge of the staff and all the hiring. I mean, our town manager is here. We can ask her, but
Okay, so.
it's very confused. So the reason to change the function is to say, you know what? We can do so much more with this RPA if we were not only giving it support from the people who have to do all of this short-term town stuff. Let's let the RPA have a grant writer. Let's have the RPA sit with every town board and say, how can we support your long-term plans? Let's let the RPA help. So that's the idea. I know it's
Jill?
out there.
Does Libby, do you want a grant writer? Because this would be your employee, I guess.
No, this would not be Libby's employee.
Then who hires this person?
So just like the Water Commission or the Airport Commission, the NP and EDC is not a town board. The NP and EDC the town manager does not hire the people for the NP and EDC.
They don't have any staff now,
They do. They have a planning director and a deputy planning.
but they run the
director.
plus office as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but they still contract with the town. So who's this person gonna contract with, I guess?
I would. Libby, do you want to say something? I don't want to pull you in if you don't want to come in.
I don't know that I really have anything to add. I mean.
How's this person
Not-
get funded? Like,
the town would have to fund it. The other issue I would just point out about grant writers is we've talked about this quite a bit. Grant writers get grants, and who's going to manage the projects and the grants after that? We don't even have the capacity now to handle regular projects.
That's true.
Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of along the same lines, so I hope I'm not repeating, but are there other staff that would be, because I'm having a hard time connecting the dots between, it sounded like you'd said there was, the staff is, at the staff level, they're too focused on short-term things. And I'm having a hard time connecting the dots on the governance, taking that pressure off the staff. I get there'd be an incremental grant writer. Are there other incremental staff that would come in a planning function, things like that? Are we growing another staff base?
So, this article does not add any staff, and it doesn't make the decision about whether or not we would grow staff. But what I'm trying to communicate, is that we have the opportunity, because we have this state agency, to apply, to get these grants, to work on long-range planning. And we've really been fighting with one arm tied behind our back, because we have busied it with, we have intertangled it with the planning board, and we have busied it with all of, you know, we busied it with all the things that it's doing. So to the question of where would the money come from? I guess I would say, let's disentangle these two groups, and then let's let a properly scoped regional planning agency free to decide what to do. It's not going to cost the town any more to do that, but it is costing the town serious money right now to not do it.
So would follow-up question, would MPEDC no longer employ the planning director and the deputy planning director in your disentangling?
The NPEDC still it would be called the Planning Commission, and, they would employ who they want to employ. They would be a commission, just like, they're a commission now, and they choose who they want to hire, and they could continue to hire whoever they want to hire.
But, sorry,
No, please.
So we're trying to, I say we, I'm saying, I think what you're trying to do, what this article aims to do, is separate long-term planning from the short-term permitting, right? So right now we have a planning director and a deputy planning director who are in charge of both. And you're saying the planning commission in the future may hire whomever they want. The town still needs somebody for the short-term permitting functions, as you call them. So we are talking about adding 2 people and probably a grant writer, so probably 3 people.
If the Planning Commission wants to negotiate that and figure that out, we would have a group that has a mandate to get more long-range planning done, and they would have to figure out how to do it. And we have great people. It's just that we're asking them to do too much. The Merrimack Valley
At the
Planning
staff level or
Commission,
at the board level when you say that?
well, both. I mean, I was talking about the staff, actually, but the board, I was talking about the staff. I think we're asking our staff to do too much. They're not getting to the long-range planning. So when I talked about the real money that it's costing the town, that chart that I showed you, Massachusetts just last year gave $12 million for parks, playgrounds, playing fields, shade structures, benches. And we could not apply for $1 of it. And the reason why is because we do not have an up-to-date open space plan.
Well, I mean, to pair it, Libby, what would we do with the first dollar that we got? We have so many projects that we can't even begin to work on. What would we do with the next dollar for a shade structure?
So as soon as we're ready to spend $1 of taxpayer money that could be replaced with $1 of grant money, I would say, why would we not do
I
that?
agree with you, as soon as we're ready to do that.
Yeah, it would
And
be,
we're not ready
it's
to
ready
do
to
that.
do. Well, we're spending money all the time right now. Where's Jeff Carlson has $100,000 for a harbor plan that could be funded by a grant.
He has the money.
It's in the
So why do we
budget.
need a grant for it?
Well, we don't. And, you know, I do think that it's easy to, you know, it's harder to get grants, but I mean, that's why having an agency to do it. So it doesn't have to be done by the staff. The agency is there to help. So I mean, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, did anybody read this?
I did,
No.
$2.5 million was their revenue they got.
Yes, and they pay take only 6% from their 15 towns. They only take 6%.
That would be a lot.
So no, they have their gross revenue that they're spending, only 6% of that is coming from their towns. They charge their overhead to the grants. Our overhead rate is 141%. So they are self-funding by getting these grants, which now are $1 trillion.
But then, okay, so let's say you get these grants, then you're gonna turn that back over to Libby to run that? Or do you want this planning commission to run this?
So the planning commission helps, and I think it would be a discussion with the staff. The planning commission, so for example, Jill, every year the state gives our planning commission district local technical assistance funds. It's usually $50,000, and we usually hand it over to like the housing trust to write a housing plan or write the open space plan. This year they gave us over $80,000. And the reason why they gave us the extra $30,000 was because there are so many federal grants that they want all of their regional planning agencies to get helping their towns figure out how to apply for these grants. So when you say, you know, you turn it over, this would be a service organization that would help do long-range planning, make sure the long-range planning gets done, and help identify areas that would save the town money.
But you want them to have a director of planning, I guess,
We need a director. of
who is a
planning, yeah.
peer of Libby and Andrew Vorse? Is that?
Well, Andrew Vorse is the director of planning right now, so he would continue to be the director of planning.
But you're director for the NPEDC, that's what.
He is the director of the NPEDC.
Yeah, so he would remain in that role, or you want to hire a new person?
It doesn't matter what I want. I mean, it would be. a new
Not to
commission,
replace
yeah.
his existing job, I'm saying, are the way I feel like your structure, it looks like you want to keep plus here and you want NPEDC here. You want this like separation.
We would get
Which is
more-
why you want
I-
to remove the
yeah.
planning commissioners from the board, so that you can replace them with these at-large members. So you're trying to keep them independent from plus. But yet you want them to contract with the town. You see what I'm saying? This is where I'm a process-minded person,
Mhm.
so you can't say, oh, we're gonna have this independent group that can do all these wonderful things. They're just gonna rain all these wonderful money all over the town. But then the staff that you want to work for this group, this elected body, mostly elected body, they're going to be contracted with the town. You see, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, kind of how you want to structure it.
Jeremy, yes, ask a question, and then actually I need to jump in and ask Mary Longacre a few questions.
I have a few questions too, Denise.
Following up
Joanna,
on-
thank
on
you.
the Process question,
Mhm.
getting back to my original thought to you, that you're looking, your aspirations are. Which, by the way, federal grant money does give you an administrative overhead, so you can hire people to administer it usually. Which is your 140%.
Just need the housing.
Yeah. Okay, but you want to get the grant money and you want long-term strategic planning. What I want to understand, which deals with your question, why did you want to set this up? In the, next to plus with the existing things, why shouldn't this just be a novel, brand new endeavor? Because it seems to me you're walking into a buzzsaw as we have to figure out how to deal with the governance and the organizational structures and all of that sort of stuff, where you have two distinctly separate aspirational goals.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jeremy. I'm saying, let's shine a light on the fact that we have entangled the short term and the long term, and we are not getting to the short term. And what could we do, or to the long term? And we really aren't getting to the long term. I mean, it's not happening. And
Give me a specific example, Hillary.
a
A
specific,
specific example.
okay, a specific example is that our open space plan has been expired for 9 years. And in each and every one of those 9 years, we have not been able to receive or apply for grants for playing fields. I think we have a few of those we need, tennis courts, playground equipment, drinking water protection.
So you're going to turn everything on its head because of one plan that's not. been
We
completed.
also have a master plan, which is supposed to be updated and presented in 2023 at town meeting, which has not even started. So I know it's not, you know, I feel a little bit like a whistleblower, but we do have to come to terms with the fact that it's nobody's fault, but we are asking our staff to do too much, and we're not getting to the
We've
long
heard
range
that a few
planning.
We've heard that a few times, sorry. Is the
Yeah,
open
I
spaces
just
plan?
feel defensive, you know, but it's.
I don't think you
not
should
done.
feel defensive. It's just, it's hard. It's hard to change government.
I
It's
don't
slow,
know.
but the process is everything. And so your vision is, you know, interesting, but the process is everything and how it actually works, or it will do nothing. And we've seen that happen before in this town. The open spaces plan, can that only be written by the NPEDC?
No,
Draft was
other
presented in
people,
December. I don't know the status of it, but it does exist.
the status is that it's provisionally accepted. And we can now apply for grants. We've been trying to update it since 2014, and for whatever reason, it has fallen to the NPEDC. It could be done by other people.
Right,
So-
but why would the NPEDC, why do they have to write that?
They,
Who does that fall
Well,
on?
they are the planning commission, you know, change name or not, they are the. planning
Yeah, but a
commission. It
staff
is where
member
it
is
ought to be
writing
done.
it and then they're signing their name to it. I mean,
But, you're right, so I don't understand how the makeup of the body changes that. I think we're talking about a staffing issue, and where we've seen progress on issues, planning issues before. When there was a need for an energy coordinator, you know, somebody
Mhm.
went out and wrote that position, and it got funded privately until it was funded publicly.
yes,
And the same thing for housing. And
yes,
so if there's other things like that, it seems to me that that's a proven pathway toward getting people who are focused. And now we don't just have people, we have offices, we have staff people and buildings, and, you know, we have infrastructure to attack these things. And that might be, that has been the better way to approach these things, rather than, you know, changing the whole structure, which it seems to me this is not the appropriate way to get done what you want to achieve. You know, we want more staff time and more dedicated people focusing on long range planning, but this doesn't achieve that.
Joanna, you had some questions?
Yeah, I just really have a couple of thoughts that I think may or may not be helpful anyway. You know, we have been, I think, shown many articles over time that seek to reorganize different departments in the town. I mean, we just listened to the whole HDC thing the other day. This is in large part a systems issue. I think that there's not anybody on the call who wouldn't recognize that some of these systems need to be improved. I just don't think that it's wise to legislate it outside of a process that the people who are in charge of the work actually architect. Right, so this whole thing is outside of anything that these folks would have put forward to re-architect their own process, which is kind of the same thing that we said to the HDC people the other night. I think the second thing is that, and I'm not sure there has been someone who's asked about a grant writer more than me, but I also understand that in this particular situation, I don't believe that it would work for an outside commission to accept monies from a grant and then activate on it without it being directly related to the town, right? Like that money, grant money has to be received by the town through the town's finances. You can't give an outside agency a grant and then tell it, like, that's not exactly how it works, right? And
I'm sorry, but that is what regional planning agencies do. That's their whole, that's what they.
We were set up in that way, but we
are
aren't.
set up in that way. We
Right.
are just not doing it. We're just not doing it. And it's not that we can't, it's that we're not.
So the NP and EDC could do all these things that you,
Yes.
it's just that you feel the current governance structure doesn't focus enough on long-term issues.
Yes.
It focuses too much on the weeds and not on the forest or whatever.
I'd like to go to, I'd like to go to Mary.
Sorry.
Thanks, Joe. Mary, you don't,
Thank-
you don't do any long-range planning, Mary?
So that's actually one of the points that I wanted to make is that the conversation is proceeding as if NPNEDC was not meeting every month, was not having any discussions, and that's not true. We have been, for the last several months, considering what changes we might want to make to the charter from our own initiative. We have been planning to look at the membership and see if there are changes that we think ought to be made. The land bank member was actually our idea, which Hillary adopted in her plan. So there's certainly plenty of discussion going on through the NPNEDC about what the best approach for Nantucket is with this agency. And I don't think it's accurate. I think several of the things that Hillary said are not accurate. The open space plan is provisionally accepted by the state. We are now able to apply for grants under that. That will be completed, in a few months' time, we hope. It's not accurate to say that there's no starting on the master plan. First of all, the master plan is under the provision of the planning board, not the NPNEDC. Second, it is started. It's not accurate to say that it was supposed to be presented at any particular time. It has a flexible renewal schedule. So there's a lot that is going on through the NPNEDC to do long-range planning, not limited to the things that Hillary is talking about. I would also take issue with the org chart. I don't think it's a proper presentation of the relationship between the NPNEDC and the Plus Department and Town Administration. The NPNEDC is not involved in things like permit reviews and such. There are many things that the planning board does, and perhaps there's some confusion between the planning board's functions and the NPNEDC's functions. But the NPNEDC is not involved in the tiny day-to-day activities of the Plus Department. It is confusing because of the relationship where the town contracts with the NPNEDC to provide services by the Director of Planning. But the fact is that right now, almost all of our funding comes from the town. And so if we're talking about adding a grant writer, if we're talking about adding staff, if we're talking about new positions to serve the NPNEDC, right now, those would come from the town, would be town employees. The Director of Planning and the Deputy Director of Planning are town employees. We get a reimbursement from the state for some of their salary for the planning purposes of their jobs. So it's a lot more complicated than what is going on. But I think that the bottom line is that the changes that Hillary is proposing in the makeup of the NPNEDC do not guarantee any of the things that she's looking for. And the NPNEDC is trying to figure out the better structure, working with the town and working with the members who are agencies represented in the NPNEDC to figure out what the best approach would be for Nantucket. It's an ongoing discussion. It's a broader discussion than what Hillary is representing in this article. And we'd like that discussion to be able to continue unimpeded by having to change the NPNEDC for this article and then change it again once we finish our deliberations. So the NPNEDC did recommend not to adopt this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for Mary while she's on?
No.
All right.
Well, I'd like to respond if you don't mind. To what Mary said. I did say that the open space plan was provisionally accepted, which it is. And I do appreciate that the NPNEDC is starting to talk about their structure. And, this is my article that I'm bringing to town meeting. These are ideas taken from people in the community as well. This is an agency that we have the ability to form from the state. And I think that everybody on Nantucket should be able to have a say in how it's formed. But I also think that we have to be honest with ourselves about how much progress we've made on planning. It is true that the org chart that I presented is still the org chart that Plus presents. It was in your materials just for Saturday. And it is confusing, which is why I'm bringing forward an article to make it very clear that they're separate organizations.
I have an observation, and I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts, Hillary. So the current existing MP and EDC has 5 planning board members, all elected, county commissioner, select board person elected, Concom elected, housing authority elected.
Concom is appointed.
Concom's appointed?
Yeah.
Very much so.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that drama a few years ago. Housing authority elected, and then 3 at-large members. And those 3 at-large members are Christy Ferrantella, Wendy Hudson, and Mary Longacre. So I would offer they are excellent at-large members, and they can all say hi, Denise, when they see me in Stop and Shop now. 2023, your article swapped this out. So basically, it was 7 elected people and 4 appointed. Redoing my thing. So then your recommendation in 2023, which was last year, because I compared your 2 articles side by side, not surprisingly. And you were going to have basically the same thing, 7 elected and 4 appointed. And then in 2024, you have swapped it out to be 5 elected, 1 planning board, 1 housing authority elected, 1 county commissioner elected, 1 Concom appointed, 1 NHC, Historical Commission appointed, and 1 Land Bank elected. So that will be actually 8 elected, because I got the Concom wrong. 8 elected and 2 appointed. I do not see how changing the composition gets to any of the things you talked about when we have people who were elected to do planning, and I'm sorry, but having run big businesses, I had my short-term and long-term planners together. I didn't want them going cross purposes or going separate from each other. And when I look at the composition of the people who are on this, they're highly talented, qualified people. And the implication is that the 5 at-large elected members are going to be better than what we've got now. And I struggle with that. I think that's inappropriate to make that assumption. So I can't make the transition from changing the composition to being able to achieve all the things you've talked about. I can't make that transition. I can't get there. So how would you get me there?
Well, I guess what I would say, thank you for asking, Denise, and thank you for your analysis. I think it's really about launching this conversation that we have a planning board that is responsible for the subdivision control and all the things they do for the town. And they do not have to be the same people as the regional planning agency. We can have a distinct commission that doesn't completely overlap with our planning board, and that might actually attract some people. And it might be the wonderful 3, I don't disagree with you about the 3 at large, people who were chosen. Now, there were other wonderful people who maybe were good in a different way that didn't get chosen. So that we could attract a core of 5 people who just want to do the long range planning. I think we ask a lot of our planning board. They have to serve on this commission. They stand up for planning board, which is a sure way to fight with people in the Stop and Shop. And then they also get put on this commission. And then they also go on the contract committee, the housing trust. There's more commissions that they have to be on. So this is helping the community recognize that the regional planning agency really has different responsibilities. And it should be, as Jeremy and I think Joe had mentioned, if I have it correctly, why not have a new, or why entangle everything with plus? It's not a comment on anyone. And I just want to emphasize, I don't have any dog in this hunt. I am not doing this from any personal interest. This is simply because I see very hard times for our coast, for our fishery, for our harbor. And I think we need all the help we can get. And I don't think we should have a planning board and an RPA that is all intertwined.
And that's your opinion, Hillary. End of story. I mean, honestly,
Yes.
I'm, that's how you believe it should be.
Well, I'm not
And I-
alone, Denise. I mean, this is legislation. I am part of the legislative body of Nantucket, which is town meeting. And the only way we get stuff done is that people raise their hand and say, I'm legislating up or down. So that's. what it
And
is.
lots of people also think differently.
Yes,
So that's I mean, the observation is not to say,
yeah,
so I also understand that when I make statements, it's my opinion, and that's how I think of things, and I'm happy to have it be my opinion.
yeah.
And, some days my opinions are more
Yeah.
right than other days. So,
Right. Well, I
especially if you
am,
ask at
I mean,
home.
I am also bringing some evidence. You can keep this if you want, which is the project plan from 2 years ago about what was hoped to be achieved. And I mean, this is a list of all the grants that towns are getting. It's real money.
But can I give you an example?
Yeah.
I put a group together and we wrote a grant. We didn't get it. It was great, though. It was for mental health, it was $1 million. We didn't get it. I mean, that happens on Nantucket, I think, quite a bit is.
Happens everywhere.
It happens everywhere.
But
which-
I'm just saying, it's not a grant that
So
went through
does
the
that mean you
cracks.
shouldn't have applied? I mean.
No, it was great. It brought the community together. I think grant writing's good, but I think the town staff do know about the grants for their areas. And I
Mhm.
actually don't think if we elected people, they're the ones that I don't like. How are they gonna know about what grants?
Yeah.
Your grant focus on this time around, which I don't
Yeah.
recall from last year, is kind of what flipped my switch on it. And that's why I'm asking. I mean,
Mhm.
it would be great if we could know what all the grants were to apply for them, but I think that is the job of Libby and her staff, and I think that they do know what they can and can't apply for, or what has worked or what doesn't, or what kind of.
I don't think, I don't think anybody can know about all these grants, which is why it helps to have an organization that is just there to help.
But how is this the organization that's just there to help? Who are these people? We haven't discussed a single
Yeah. Well,
additional person. There's no staff.
Chris,
Can I
Chris
just-
wants
She
to
is
say
gonna get
something.
that.
But that's for me, the challenge I'm really having is it actually feels like a logical disconnect. That we're saying no one's to blame, it's because the staff is stretched too thin, but we're gonna try to fix that by governance and switching out the people who are governing it. To me says there's someone to blame, not that there's, because it would be a different solution if it really is a lack of staff resource. And I'm just literally having a hard time getting over that bridge.
Right, I don't disagree that we could benefit from more people. But we need more people, and this changes the makeup of the commission, but it doesn't get more people to actually do the work. So grant writer or administrator or anybody, this doesn't do any of that.
It doesn't. And, having a town council form of government doesn't, fix the town either. I mean,
Well, it does the things they said it would do, which would allow people to vote on issues in a more timely manner. That was a specific example that would be addressed.
Right.
Hillary,
Mhm.
I have some experience with grants,
Mhm.
and it is terribly difficult. And most people don't know it. I don't care if you're in the business or where the grants come from. I guarantee you, those people don't know what the federal government has got in all these acts. It's very, very hard. There is a ton of money. Cracking that code is very, very difficult. And this is new. All the money you outlined is absolutely new. So there's a great opportunity there. I see that. And there probably is great need for outside expertise or new people to come in and get that money. I think your problem is you've identified a great opportunity, but you're now coming at it directly against governance or structure issues or process issues. And I'm not so certain how you're going to be able to navigate that. Because you got so many different entrenched interests, people who say they're doing this, even if they aren't, and people are all very, very busy doing. I almost think you need to find a different way to bring the resources to unlock, the good milkshake when you stick, the straw in the ground to get it out, because because you've identified a great opportunity. And it does require additive resources to get it. But my sense is you're just, well, I'm repeating myself, but you're gonna run into these governance issues that are in many ways bigger problems. They're sort of small, but they're big at the same time.
I am proposing a restart of the RPA. And I'm proposing that we start talking about the RPA and that we have a problem. The first step is to recognize that we have a problem, and not everybody thinks we have a problem. I mean, it's my opinion, which I'll support with evidence that we have a problem, but you know, I think I can see where this is going. I don't think you all are gonna motion to adopt this article.
Can I ask
And
just-
yeah,
RPA is a legal municipal concept, right?
yes,
And so that legal construct is required to access these opportunities.
yes,
Okay. And the RPA presently is doing lots of other things.
yes.
And so you need access to that legal construct in order to get all these other stuff.
Nantucket
Okay.
has an F-15 fighter jet, and we are not using it to fight the battle that we need to fight. It's very intertwined with our planning board and all of the things that they do. And it has staff that doesn't have time to support it because they're doing all of those other things. So I'm going at this from a governance structure. That's what's available to me as a citizen legislature. I cannot, you know, change Plus. I wouldn't necessarily want to. I think they're doing a good job of what they're doing. We have a regional division within Plus, which is Lawrence Sinatra, and you know, we didn't have a transportation person for 2 years, and then we had one for 9 months, and they didn't stay. But other than that, you know, we have a preservation planner who spends 85% of her time on HDC. I think that, well, I've told you what I thought. You can go ahead. Maybe there's some other people who want to speak. You know, there are some letters. People who wrote letters of support. The vote last year was very close. There's a lot of support for this, but it's your motion. So
It is.
however
Thank
you
you.
like to proceed.
Joe, you want to say something?
I was just curious, if you take away the grant writing, what does a regional planning authority or agency, what other responsibilities do they have? Do they determine, I don't know, a long-term result? I don't know. What else are they doing? You feel that the EDC isn't doing, it's too bogged down in the short term. You obviously feel that the grant writing is a resource that's being underutilized. So what else does the group do?
So the regional planning agency follows the regional planning law. And they permit a city or town to plan jointly with other cities or towns. In our case, it's just jointly among our villages and, you know, among our various needs for orderly development within the jurisdiction and for the welfare and prosperity of their citizens. They are supposed to make careful studies of resources, problems, possibilities, needs of district. They prepare a comprehensive plan of development. They recommend plans for the societal government. They protect our environment. They have access. The important thing, Joe, is that they have access to technical expertise from the state. So they get to go to the party.
So, but just to, go ahead, Joe.
So if the new RPA writes a study that says, you know, we need,
Have a land bank. That's what
or
they
whatever,
did. Yeah,
does the
have a
town
land
have to
bank.
go along?
No,
So this is sort of a.
it's there to
group that-
help.
There to help, okay.
And so I would imagine this group talks about all the issues you just talked about, and who do they have to talk to? Jeff Carlson, Roberto Santa Maria. They're going to have to go to the town departments to
Yes.
get this done.
Yes,
So they're not gonna get it done because they're just the 5 smartest people in the room,
no,
right?
No.
So,
and they're not gonna be 5, they're gonna be 11, and they're going to have the Conservation Commission and.
I know,
the
I know,
land bank.
Hillary, I
Yeah.
did we already
Yeah,
talked about
well,
my
you said the
analysis
5
before.
smartest, and it's
Well,
not
because
5.
you are putting 5
Yeah.
new people on it, so.
Yeah, plus the Historical Commission and all that, yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay, Curtis, did you want to say something?
I'm just looking at this list of recommended new town personnel, and here's a senior planner in flood for $128,000.
Mhm.
Where does that fit into this whole discussion?
So that was with in the budget discussions, and they are adding another senior planner, so.
To do what in the context of this whole conversation?
Specifically, I don't have.
Well, I mean,
Whatever the planning director.
Well, no, I understand, but what I'm saying is you're talking about people and opportunity, and you're hiring a new person, a senior person who may be doing some of this. I'm just trying to figure out.
Right.
Does it
So
fit in any way, shape,
I
or
can
form?
try to answer that, but
I'm just
so.
bringing it up because it's there.
Yeah, so, no, I was actually gonna mention it, but I didn't. So this is the org chart. The senior planner job has been open for at least 2 years. And we have not been able to fill it, and we do really need it. And they are in this org chart under land use and regulatory division. The senior planner role is very, very important. Renee Seeley was actually our first senior planner on Nantucket. She worked for the NPDC and for the planning director. Senior planner under land use and regulatory division is doing zoning and regulatory. Now, that's what I understand when I see this. I'm just reading the org chart.
Yeah, Andrew's not here to answer that, so, yeah, I would agree that's how I would interpret that chart too. So, thank you. Other questions or comments? I don't see any. Oh, Mary's hand's raised. Mary?
Thank you. Just a clarification. The reason the senior planner position has been open is that because of COVID, there was a hiring freeze. And so we are now pursuing that funding in the budget for that position. And we certainly welcome the additional hands on deck. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Great. Good. Other questions from the committee? So Joanna, any other further questions or comments before I ask for a motion to close the public discussion? She's shaking her head no? Okay, thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to close the public comment portion? Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call. Jill?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Denise? Aye. Okay, that's the end of the public comment discussion. And thank you, Hillary. And okay, committee, what's your appetite? Oh, you
Would you
can
like me to-
No, you can stay. I mean, I think you'll still see us from over there. No offense, but maybe unless Curtis wants some company and time out, but he's been in all night. So Curtis is lobbying to be our #1 fanboy. I'll tell you, he comes to our meetings and he stays. It's nice. Committee, appetite. Do we need further information in order to make a motion?
This is just my curiosity as a new person. Why can't you create something aspirationally that avoids all the problems? That's what, the way you've constructed it, you get too many people who just aren't going to support it.
And why won't people support it? I'm just honestly
I'm a newbie,
curious.
so I
Yeah.
don't quite know,
No.
but it just seems like governance is a very hard thing to tinker with. It just is.
So it has already been to town meeting and it.
Let me
failed,
reopen
yeah.
the public comment because we had closed it.
It's all right, all right.
We closed it, so I can reopen it. So I am officially reopening the public comment portion, so you can respond to.
Oh, sure.
Jeremy.
I'll just, I can't answer your question of why isn't there some other way? I mean, I guess I could apply to be the senior planner. I don't know. But I did bring this to town meeting and there was a 16 vote spread. So this was largely popular. I don't think we can, say, oh.
What was the vote? Wasn't the vote like split down the middle of whether to recommend it for further study? It wasn't like.
It
either
was
pass
a
or no further
motion,
study.
it was Joanna's motion to refer for study.
So almost 50% of people didn't even want to do that.
Or they wanted to actually vote yes and not
Maybe,
study it. Yeah.
Maybe.
It's generally been perceived to be a feeling of popularity, but.
I mean, the
But
question,
it's true. it's
the
very
question I asked you last year was how. It's easy to get Santa Claus to vote for Christmas, but it's very difficult to get the turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. And
Who's the turkey in this situation?
but my point is, I don't think you spent enough time with turkeys trying to get them on side. And we asked you that last year.
I spent
And
so much time,
You,
Denise.
however, you spent time, but you didn't get to an outcome where they
They
were
don't
on your side.
agree. They don't agree. You know, the people who are, this is why I say sometimes when we want to change our form of government, we have to have a study committee that's not the government. Right? So we actually have to go through a process to form a study committee, appoint the study committee. It can't be the current government. It has to be independent.
Well, none of the government functions can be on any of the commissions and committees. It has nothing to do with that, Hillary.
So we
So,
asked.
like last
we
year when
asked
you wanted the DPW director who couldn't be on it because he's the
He-
DPW director
That he had been on it for years.
and he wasn't supposed to have been.
That is, I don't know where you got that information, but I know from the planning director at the time who put the DPW director on, that he was on because the DPW director is up to his or her eyeballs in what needs to happen to this Nantucket, and it was very intentional.
But now we're taking
that's
the
a-
planning
that-
board
that's
off
a-
because, I mean, those are the people who are up to their.
That we're not
eyeballs.
taking the planning board off. The planning board and 5 other boards each have equal representation. And by the way, anyone can run for one of the 5 seats. It's just that the planning board should not outweigh everything else in my structure. But I digress. We've talked about this for a long time. Denise, to answer your question, I don't think we should be asking the group that we have a legislature, it's town meeting. The voters of Nantucket are smart. They're not dummies.
I agree, Hillary. I'm not saying they're not.
And I've spent a lot of time with them, and I've also, been inside the boat. I've reformed the historical commission. I've spent a lot of time with administrators in the town administration. I think you can't expect change from within.
Yes, you
in
can.
this case.
I have seen it in my personal business life, time and time again.
The
You
fact-
can absolutely get turkeys to vote for Thanksgiving. It's not easy. It's not simple. It takes a lot of work and there's compromise that happens all along the way. And I'm done on this.
Yeah,
Actually.
I mean, last year at town meeting, someone got up on the floor and said that this was gonna cause everybody to sue, to be sued. And there's just a lot of misinformation.
Okay,
Yes,
Anne,
there's-
you want to say something?
Yes, thank you. I was a little surprised that you closed the open hearing because I didn't really hear from anybody outside the commissioners,
Well,
or
hear
the
from you
members of
now.
the committee. Yeah, I am supportive of Hillary's initiative. I agree with the idea that it's almost impossible to change from within in a circumstance like this. And I think that we did not have a debate on the town floor last year. I think there needs to be one. This was referred for study. There has been virtually no study until October of this year, when it became obvious that Hillary would reintroduce her legislation. So change from within is simply not happening, or at least not in any kind of voluntary and constructive way that I can see. I've been through all of the meeting notes and agendas and minutes from the last year's meetings of the NP and EDC. It's clear that we need a different structure. At least it's clear to me. That's my opinion, but that's what this is all about. And you all have expressed your opinions very forcefully, and they are only opinions. Now, you also have to vote on the motion. So the opinions, which have been led to a certain extent by leading comments and leading questions. But again, let's just remember, those are your opinions too, but I do support Hillary's initiative. I think she's done an incredible amount of work. She's thought it through very carefully. And I would like to see it get a reasonable motion so that it can be properly debated and the voters can finally have a say on what we should be doing in this particular aspect of our town government and the long-range planning, which is so critical and challenging to our island. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, is there anyone else that wants to say something before I close the public hearing again? No? Oh, Mary?
Thank you. Just one further point of clarification. The NPNEDC had a lot of member turnover due to people passing away, unfortunately, and due to the regular change in the boards which appoint members. We consciously chose to wait until we had a stable slate of members, which was in August, before we began to discuss this topic. We wanted to make sure that the new voices would have the full conversation. So I understand that sometimes the public doesn't see the wheels of government turning. That doesn't mean that they aren't turning. So just to let you know that circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I mean, there's no question there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm on this topic. And there's no question that everyone's intentions are to do the right thing for the island. I don't doubt that for anyone who brings any citizens warrant article to the table. Our role as a finance committee is to make a recommendation on every article that isn't led by the planning board. They do it first, or the sewer commission. And then that's our role, and to the best of our ability from our own knowledge is to make judgments on whether we believe this article best helps Nantucket or not, as with any article. So just to put that framework in place. So yes, of course, we all have opinions, and we have opinions based on the homework we do. So there we go. Good.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
there's one more hand raised. And, oh, Deanne.
Deanne, you'll be our last public comment because we're getting too close to the end of this meeting. So over to you.
Thank you, Denise. Can you hear me?
We can, Deanne. It's like you're in the room.
Thank you. I have a question through you, Madam Chair, I guess to Mary. Does she think that the NP and EDC may have some recommendations by the special town meeting this fall?
Thank you, Deanne. Mary, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I do not have a specific timeline for the recommendations. We're trying to do this comprehensively, and I could not offer you a specific timeline. So I can't say yes or no to that question.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Deanne. Okay, thank you, Mary. No more hands? No. Closing the public comment section. So may I have a motion?
Motion closed.
Thank you. Second. Okay, you're gonna go sit with Curtis.
Clear that I'm not gonna get drawn back in.
You're gonna sit with Curtis in timeout. Yeah. FinCom timeout. Second, may I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Jill.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Okay. Public comments over. Is there a motion on the table? Or is there an appetite for a motion today? Or do we want to think about it some more and make a motion at a later time? I'm open to whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm fine to like take a vote tonight. I mean, I'm very impressed with the amount of work that Hillary has done. She's built up a huge amount of knowledge. But and even though this isn't exactly the same thing as the HDC discussion we had the other night, I really have trouble with citizens sort of parachuting solutions in when it's really hard to know what's really going on inside the planning function. And I just don't think this is the way to do it. I kind of agree with you that change can come from inside the organization, and just sort of parachuting a solution in isn't the way to do it. So.
Thank you, Joe. Other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the idea that we need more help. There needs to be more people with the time, the expertise to dig into these long range plans and then see that they're executed. But I don't see how this article achieves that. I think it's going to create more. If it doesn't create more work, the work is there for us. But if you have there's just going to be a different set of voices directing an already overburdened planning staff. I think we need more staff. we need to fill that senior planner position and probably add more in the same way that we added an energy coordinator and we added a housing director and then more housing staff. So that's the direction I'd like to see this going. I don't know that this article can be directed in that way.
Okay, thank you. Any other?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I agree with both those sentiments, and to me, what happened this year was you went back to your original structure, but then you got really caught up in these arguments on this grant writing, and so then that's when for me, what's hard is who's gonna run that, who's doing that? Well, we already have the staff, and who are supposed to be applying for those grants and doing those things, and I don't know how having more elected people who don't have technical expertise as planning board members, I think, have, especially if they've been there for a while. I don't think that helps us get any more grant money, so I view them as two separate issues, and so that kind of muddied the waters for me this year, but I know you've done a lot of work on it. I did read this. I think it's very interesting, and I hope that the planning board, actually, it sounds like they are gonna make changes because of, I think, some of the push that you're doing, and I commend you for that.
I would love them to rename themselves to the planning commission, honestly, because it's always the alphabet commission for me. So the NP and EDC.
True.
Jeremy.
Just one day.
I've had a fair amount of experience in change management, and my experience has been different than yours. I have seen it have to come from external factors. I think that your aspirations are great. I don't know the whole history of the governance discussion here. But I almost think that you're trying to change it within this structure just isn't going to work from what I hear. And so in many ways, I think you need to approach your aspirations in some kind of a different structure. Obviously you need the RPA as a legal construct, but I think you need to think about maybe culturally, how do you extract your new ideas outside of this existing entity that's not performing the way you want it? And that sort of entity has to have its own culture. And I have had a lot of experience in grant writing. It's terribly difficult. And the people you think should be in the know often are not. So again, that's a different expertise, a body of expertise than may actually be resident in the town staff today, especially when you have brand new legislation that's not even 6 months old. It's enormous.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion?
Motion to not adopt.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, further discussion on the motion? Okay, roll call, Jill?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
Welcome, thank you. I feel like I was on The View or The Voice. Shark Tank.
Yeah, Shark Tank, that's it. We're on an island, there's sharks. So, okay, wait a minute, sorry. On my agenda is our Libby, I am going to defer the review of the 2023 annual town meeting warrant by town admin until our next meeting.
Thank you.
Rather than read through all 105 warrant articles right now. Our next meeting is Thursday at 4 o'clock. And I'm going to defer committee reports till then as well. And I'm going to defer other business. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait, no, but I looked at the agenda for Thursday, but there wasn't really anything specific on there.
No, that's right. We're just gonna we're going to find out from Libby and Brian which of the town articles we can go through.
Okay,
So it'll be in real time.
okay, so we're not having anyone come to
No,
present.
we don't have any citizen warrant articles on Thursday.
Okay. That's
Yes,
what I wanted.
because I wasn't sure which ones are the ones that we have in the warrant that we can, there's a couple rename something, blah, 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 stuff that's quite straightforward. Brian and Libby explain it and we're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we haven't finalized those yet. We just got the final warrant on Thursday.
Yeah,
So-
okay.
Yes, and then I'm deferring, if, one other piece of business for the dark skies or the outdoor lighting article, if you have questions you want answered by Gail or the lighting enforcement officer, whatever, please send them to me so I can get them forwarded, so we can get answers, so we can get a Gail rescheduled. Okay, so I haven't gotten any from anybody yet, but I just want to make sure we get whatever we need. So that's our other business.
Okay,
Good.
motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Jill.
Yeah.
Stephen.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Chris.
Got me.
Joe. Chris.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you, everyone. And Maria, thank you as always.
Curtis, you want to say aye just so you can like.
Yeah.